Let's get started because I know everyone is busy trying to be as productive as possible from your home office. So we want to be respectful of the half hour that we've set aside here today. My name is Carolyn Matisky. I'm the Associate Director at the SUNY Sale Institute. I'm part of the SUNY System Administration. And typically what we do is offer our campuses programming that will help them in all of their leadership roles. So if you haven't heard of us, check us out. Our website is sunysale.org, and we've got a number of programs that perhaps would help you, your teams, or the campus constituents that you support. So I'm also joined by my colleague, Marissa McCasty. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. I'm Marissa, like Carolyn said. I'm the Leadership Development Manager at the Sale Institute.
Thanks for being with us. So Marissa will manage the chat today, so feel free to type in questions as we go through. We'll also be sharing this recording and also the slides and some additional brief summary documents that hopefully will help you as you manage teams remotely. So with that, let's begin. So what we'll do is really stress the importance of trust and being an empathetic leader. These are unique times, so those are going to be some skills that we really need to call upon as leaders to get through this period. And we'll talk about what makes teams high performing. So what are those basic characteristics? And it doesn't mean that just because we're doing things remotely that we can neglect these things or that we have to really lose some of those traits of our teams. We'll talk about how we can establish consistent procedures and what some others are doing to develop practices that are really working for them. We'll give you some tools to consider. Hopefully that's not overwhelming to you. I know I'm homeschooling my 2 children right now, so there's a lot of tools being thrown at me, but we want to just sort of summarize and work with one another to understand what is working well for you and give you some additional resources if that will be helpful. So this is my current office, my office mates rather. And so I just want to highlight my current situation. So you can see I've got a kindergartner and a 5th grader here homeschooling. He's doing the Pledge of Allegiance over there, and really happy to see his principal and have some sort of normal routine established and doing worksheets and all kinds of fun kindergarten work. So I know your home office, maybe you're working with a pet, a husband, or a spouse, and so things are a little different. And so I think one thing I just wanted to remind everyone is to be understanding that everybody's situation is unique right now, and we're all doing our best to sort of work with the parameters that we have and the office space that we have. So it's important as leaders to understand that, to check in with your teammates and see what's working well, what's not working well, and just keep the lines of communication open. So one thing that we do is maintain our Outlook calendars, and we make sure that those are up to date and we can see each other and be respectful of times that they're working and schedule meetings when it will work for everyone. So the things that we would normally do in the course of our business, even if we're at the system building or not, and staying connected. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So there was actually a Harvard Business Review article that was published just a few short days ago that is a really good resource to managing newly remote workers. But just to give you a summary here of what some of the common challenges are to remote work, people really miss that face-to-face supervision, but we have tools to be able to do that. So, it's just important to remember that people do need that, and they need that connection with their supervisors. So to maintain a regular schedule and team check-ins and one-on-ones, those sorts of things are going to be important. Another common challenge is lack of access to information. So we've got lots of different servers and files and places where people are keeping their documents. So having open access and at least sharing with one another where things are saved is going to be really important. So keeping organization and making sure that people know how to get the information that they need. And so social isolation, of course, is going to be an issue for people. So and distractions at home. I could possibly have some children barge into the room at a moment's notice here, and hopefully my coworkers would be understanding that we're all doing our best, and we try to keep to a schedule here in the house so we can minimize that. But it's a lot of coordination and a lot of things that are happening all at once. So I've got a link to this article here. It's a quick read, and so I would encourage you to get a little bit more in depth with that if you're looking for more information. The recommendations in the article are to, again, establish regular check-ins. So the SAIL team, we get together every Monday morning, 10 a.m. And now we've just added a Zoom link into our Outlook invitation. So everybody logs right in and starts our week off right so that we can establish what the priorities are for the week, sort of quick status update on how our projects are progressing, what the priorities are for each person. And we also take that time to check in with each other as human beings and just see what's happening, how people are, did they have any kind of fun amidst this, isolation and the quarantine. So keeping those regular check-ins is going to be really important. I do have a poll question because I want to make sure I engage with you all. So how often are you meeting with your team? And I'm going to pull this poll up on the screen, and feel free to vote for more than one answer. I'll give you a minute or two to get your votes in. Okay, we've got most of the votes are in, so I'll share the results with you here. And it's really great to see that 46% of you are meeting every day. That's fantastic because communication is really going to be important to maintain. And if you were meeting that often in the office, that's great. 3 times a week, that's pretty common. So a quarter of you are meeting that often. I told you that our SAIL team meets all together as a group once a week, so that's fine as well. So if you have the ability to meet a little bit more often than bi-monthly or monthly, that may help, especially in this time, just to avoid some of those issues that we were talking about, people feeling isolated or not knowing where to get the information. They don't want to interrupt their boss if they don't know where a document is, and that could really hold them up. So I would encourage you all, if you have the ability to increase the communication, even if it's short check-ins, that may show you some improvement. Let's see here. There are several different options for communicating. I know our team just started using Microsoft Teams, so we're going to see how that works for us. We were already using SUNY's Workplace, and especially the chat. Our offices are a little bit separated, so instead of walking around and trying to get everybody together physically, we were already using chat, so we've got that as a way of checking in. But I encourage you to do a little bit more than just email. People need more than an email, and I think people sit on emails and they want to have everything perfect and drafted. So if you're able to get more communication methods going, like a chat or a Workplace Teams, or a Microsoft Teams rather, that will help people feel more connected to you. So establishing some rules of engagement. I know with working remotely, some people can have a hard time shutting it off, especially if you're a manager and you've got a lot that you're responsible for. You keep going. And so it's important, however, to understand what other people's expectations are, what they need from you, and set some parameters. Just have a conversation with your team about what's acceptable. You know, if you're more responsive in the morning and they know you'll have an open period of time to connect with you either by phone or online, then just sort of have those conversations about what's acceptable. I know our team has a lot going on at any given time, and so it's easy for us, and we fall victim to this too, is that we don't know how to shut it off easily. So just sort of establishing that you respect their private life, even though everything is blended right now all together. It's important to have that conversation up front. Let's see. So providing opportunities for remote social interaction. And this is a good reminder for me too, even though I'm a very social person by nature, sometimes this can be easy to forget to do. But just having a question in the beginning of your agenda about what are the successes that we can celebrate. There may be something that an individual on your team accomplished that they're really proud of. And so give them an opportunity to have a little bit of attention and share a little bit about what's going well for them. And of course, offering encouragement and social emotional support. Okay, so the characteristics of high performing teams, and Marissa, I see we've got some things in the chat. Is there any questions that we should get to now?
We are all set. There are no questions.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we do a high performing teams workshop in person. Maybe we'll be doing that online now because of all of this, but want to share these common characteristics. So people really need to have trust and understand the purpose, why they're all together, that knowing that they're all committed to the same vision and objectives, sharing collective responsibility for the goals, understanding those rules of engagement, understanding what their individual responsibilities are, what they're striving for, as well as what the team is trying to achieve. And understanding that conflicts do happen in teams. That's just the nature of teams, that if you have multiple humans working together, there's going to be conflict. And so it's easy to ignore them when you're working remotely now. So it's important for the leader to try to stay in tune with some of the conflict that you might anticipate, and making sure that people have the information that they need and that they're communicating with one another in a constructive way. And of course, keeping people responsible. So just because we're not checking into an office and you can see them physically there, between the hours of 8 and 5, knowing that they have certain responsibilities and that the accountability measures are still there. So again, communicating what those are and the deadlines and responsibility, we can all still do this even though we're remote. It just may look a little different. So a quote for us to keep in mind about teamwork: silence isn't golden, it's deadly. So let's just communicate, communicate, communicate. And so our role as the leader is to create that atmosphere on our team, and we want to be encouraging and engaging with our team, making sure that everyone is connecting with one another. And so one really good suggestion that we'll offer is to maybe host an orientation for your team. So set up a very short agenda, maybe just set aside 30 minutes or an hour to talk about these expectations that you have, and set those ground rules of how you'll communicate, how often, when are you going to do your check-ins, are you still going to maintain those one-on-one meetings if you were doing those in person, how people prefer to be communicated with. If there are certain times of the day that just really won't work, just being flexible as much as we can to this new reality. And so making sure people feel comfortable also with the technologies. A lot of this is new. I know people were not everyone was using Zoom before, and maybe they're just thrust into it. But taking a little bit of time to make sure that people have the support that they need is going to be really important. And there are a lot of guides. Zoom in particular has a lot of overview videos and how-to guides and documentation. So if someone on your team is struggling with that, or you think that they might benefit from it, it's important just to share it with everyone that they do have resources. And we've got a list of resources at the end of this presentation as well. So we can share that with you, and you can share that out with your team. This was important for me to remember, that we also have to celebrate success, even though we're not sitting in the office maybe with bagels or with a pizza. But maybe you tell everybody to bring your favorite mug and you celebrate those accomplishments. If there's something that your team has been working on and you want to take a moment to just recognize the success, you can still do it online. And so it's important to recognize when people have done a good job or your team has accomplished a goal. And you can even add some extra activities in to keep them engaged online. And we've got a link here to some office celebrations that you can do virtually. So I mentioned some of those tools. So SUNY Workplace. I know Kelly Williamson at the CPD is managing that tool, and she has a lot of recorded trainings that are available. And if anyone is familiar with how Facebook works, it's very similar to that. So it's easy to learn. When I say the word Facebook, I hope you don't get scared. It is a tool that's just private for SUNY employees. And so at SAIL, we've been using this a lot. We'll have programs where people are together as a cohort and they're all across SUNY. So we'll create a private group for them and they can share, we'll share presentations that we've offered them, recordings of meetings, we'll share guides to help them along with their applied learning projects, all sorts of resources, and they have a conversation with them among themselves as a group that's private. And they can use all of the other features that Workplace offers, like chat and video and things like that. If you're not in there, you can even see SUNY announcements, which is really nice. If other people in SUNY have something important that they think will be applicable SUNY-wide, it's a great communication tool. Microsoft Teams, I will be honest, I am just getting used to this myself, but I do see that they offer a lot of videos and it's organized really well. So we've got the link to the Teams training that's available right on Microsoft's site. It's included in this presentation. And I know that my colleagues at the CPD offered 3 trainings this week rather. And so those I believe are recorded, and we've got the link to the SUNY Remote Teaching Clinic site where they have not only Microsoft Teams training, but they have a lot of other training supports that they've offered, especially to faculty who are transitioning to teaching online. So there's probably more in there that you'll find helpful aside from Microsoft Teams. And Zoom and WebEx, I know a lot of people were using WebEx, maybe not so many in Zoom, but Zoom is great. It's really easy to get acquainted with, but if you're looking for something that has a lot of advanced features, then WebEx might be the better choice.
I will say, Carolyn, that Microsoft Teams, for all the folks that are on the call, you all are system employees, and with Microsoft Teams, the help desk does have to set up an account for you. So just keep that in mind. I was trying to be self-sufficient and make my own account, but help desk does have to make you an account for you.
Great. Just want to show you a little snapshot of Workplace if you haven't seen it, how it's organized. It's pretty easy to become familiar with the features and how to use it. And maybe you'll even find a purpose for some of the groups that you've been working with that you can connect and create a group. So Marissa and I are happy to talk to you about how we use Workplace, but we have quite a few groups in there and they really enjoy it. It moves us away from email. Let's see. Microsoft Teams. So we do have that link in here. It seems to be fairly similar to Workplace. So you do have choices. You don't have to have both, but we just wanted to make sure that we at least started a dialogue about what some of the tools are to consider. And then you can figure out what is going to work for you. So I love any tool that I can add to my iPhone. And so I just have an extra option. I can log into my laptop, but I can also be accessing another tool that way. So giving people flexibility and choice is always a good thing. Any questions in there? I see we've got a few messages, Marissa.
Yes, there are a couple. We are going to, someone had asked if we could put the links that are in the PowerPoint in the chat so that people have them.
Sure.
And John had noted that he meets with his team more frequently, and then two members of the COVID-19 task force meet at times 7 days a week. So he's decided to call staff individually at least once or twice a week.
That's great. That's great. So yes, all of these links, we'll put these in the chat as well. And so let me just ask another poll question. I know you love the polls. So how often are you having one-on-one meetings with your direct reports? excuse me, not how often, but are you doing it? And this is anonymous too, so feel free to answer honestly. I don't know if everybody wants to tell the truth here because we've only got 63% voting. All right, good. We've got some votes in. All right. Looks good. Yeah, I know that schedules are busy, and so even if the one-on-one meetings only happen once a month, it's better than nothing. And maybe if you have it scheduled and they don't feel like they need it or they need less time, it's always a good thing to just give people an opportunity, if you're able to check in with you and see if there's anything that you can do to sort of clear roadblocks in their way. And we know that in this new working situation that people will have more roadblocks, and you just don't know what they are unless you have that one-on-one conversation. Some people are not comfortable sharing anything that's preventing them from doing their best work because they don't want to be seen that like they're not doing their best, or you know, that it could be seen in a negative light. So asking those direct questions about what's going well, what's not going well, what could be better. Is there anything that you can do as the manager to make it a little bit easier? And it may be something easy. So important. Oh, I thought I was sharing this with you. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the data myself here. But most of you are doing your one-on-one meeting, so you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Okay, and we've got one more poll question for you. Since we did throw a lot of tools your way, wanted to see what people are using already. So if you could answer, select as many as you're using, but how are you communicating with your team these days? Good, the votes are rolling in. Okay, we'll share the results here. Everybody loves email, right? And we've got a lot of phone calls happening, quite a bit of Zoom. Workplace, all right, only 19% are using that. Hopefully we can boost those numbers a little bit after today. And again, reach out if you want to see how we're finding success with that. Microsoft Teams, wow, 37% already. I'm curious if people were using it before this work from home situation. And then we've got some others. So if anybody wants to share in the chat with some other methods that are working well for them, we'd love to learn from you. Okay, I'm going to open the chat here. Let's see. Oh, Jabber. Okay. So some people like Jabber. Yeah, we all want to know what other entails. So we've got Jabber. Right. And thank you for sharing those links, Marissa. All right.
Sure.
So we have a few minutes left. So if anyone wants their line unmuted, feel free to ask any questions. But we thought it was important to open a dialogue about what's going well and just some of the reminders about how we can make sure that our teams stay supported and stay performing as well as they can in this new normal. FaceTime and iMessage, good. Smartsheet, huh. Maylin, do you want to share a little bit more about Smartsheet? I've never heard of that.
Hi, everyone. I just didn't want to type too long. We got it. Yeah. So for under Terry, we're just Smartsheet is like an advanced Excel. So tasks, deadlines, it gives you all the templates already done. I've never used it before, but it's become handy as we're working from home to know what other people. So we share our Smartsheets. So basically they're very in-depth, detailed Excel sheets that gives you a task, deadline, progress as you're doing it along. And then you get to share it with your team. So you get to know where everyone is, like without having to continuously ask them or check in. You can just log in and look at everyone's.
Wow, great. Great. I think we have time for a couple more questions if there's anything, or even if you just want to start a dialogue about something that your team is doing that you think would benefit others. We try to compile some of the best practices, and we know there's more that we could be doing. So we want to know what's working well for you all.
So I'll make a comment if it's okay, Carolyn.
Of course, Kevin.
Yeah. Here, I'll turn my camera on too, I guess. Why not? Yeah, so we've been using Teams regularly within OIT or the IT groups. We have different channels for different things, but mainly the chat feature. So the teams that I manage, we use that regularly. We check in every morning. We check in during the course of the day. We use the group chat function a lot to stay in sync with lots of things, and that's available to anybody if you start using Teams within Office 365. So it really keeps a running dialogue over the course of the day of various things you have going on, and it'd be difficult to work this way without it.
That's great. Well, any other questions, comments, or items to discuss before we sign off for today? I know everyone is still trying to be as productive as possible. Let's see, I've got something in the chat here. MS Team, Microsoft Teams for SUNY Online extensively to document meetings and action items, online info sharing and discussion forums, and sharing files. Yes, and absolutely, I see a question about the slideshow. Yes, we'll share this afterwards. So I believe Jessie will share it out since she has everyone's email, and we can share. I put together all these resources in a one-page, two-page Word document as well. So you'll have all the links that we presented and all of the materials. One other thing that I'm including is a job aid too. So we talked a little bit about ways to have some sort of human discussion before you get into the business. And so it's a one pager that gives you some ideas. I think there are about 6 different ideas, things that you can add to your agenda to change things up, ask people some questions without getting too hokey. And so hopefully you find that helpful. Great. All right. Well, I think that covers it. And it is Friday. We scheduled this on a Friday afternoon, hopefully to catch you in the right mindset for a message like this about how we can start to think more intentionally about the way that we're working with our teams, communicating with them, and setting up good practices. So as you start to think about the next week and thinking about maybe 1 or 2 things that you want to add in or start to add into your regular procedures, that would be great. And we're always here, the SAIL Institute, Marissa and I, to help you. If there's anything that you want to talk a little further about, we're available as well. So we wish you all well.
I also just wanted to say, take note to all of the people that are on the call today. We're all here in this together. So if you see a name and you have a question and want to collaborate with somebody on and brainstorm a couple of the things that we talked about today, that's what it's all about. So
thank you to Tracy and to Jessie for organizing this. Have a great weekend.